Once you've defined your categories, you're ready to start entering items. To do that, you click the Items button, which will open the Items window. And on the window, on the right hand side, you'll see a New button. So you click on that, select Item, or you can use the keyboard shortcut Control N for New, and that will open the category window, which will allow you to select which category you want that item to go into. So you can simply click on the category that you want to use, and if you notice, as I click on a category, there's a set of buttons or options here at the bottom that you can choose to use a specific or a particular item ID on that category. If you just want to use the next available item ID, you simply select the category, hit the Enter key, and that will automatically give you the next available item ID in that category. If you want to specify which item ID you want to use, you click the Click to Specify Other Item ID button, which will give you an option to select any item ID in that category. Okay. In this case, we're just going to select the sports category. We're going to hit Enter, and it's going to give me the first available item ID in that category, which is 500. Next, we're going to type in the title of the item. Next, we can select the item type, which could be either a standard item or a fixed price item. Fixed price items are usually sign-up items like parties or raffle tickets or any type of fixed price item that you may have, like a centerpiece or something like that. In this case, we're going to leave it as a standard item. We're going to leave the number of units as 1. And something important to note about the number of units is that even though you may have 2 tickets for this particular item, for example, you wouldn't put the number of units to 2, since only one winner is going to be getting those tickets. If you do change this to 2 or any other number above 1, it'll tell AuctionStar that the 2 highest bidders will get an item each. So in most situations, for a standard silent auction item, you're going to leave the number of units to 1. Next, we have the value per unit. So you type in the value, and notice that there's default limits here on the left, and as I post or tap out of that field, those bid limits will be updated based on the value that you assigned to that item. And these bid limits are calculated using a formula, which you can modify via Data Bid Limit Formula, and this will allow you to modify the formula which will affect all the items that are using default bid limits. The formula is based on the values of the items, so you can set a medium range. In this case, the default is 100 to 500, so anything above $500 would start at 30%. Anything between the range that you select will start at 40%, and anything below the starting range would start at 50%. So you can modify these values however you need them to apply to your particular situation. And once you're done, you just click OK, and that will affect, like I said, all the items that are using the default bid limits. Next, we have the value text, which is simply text that's going to appear after the value of the item. This is useful when you have priceless items. If you have a priceless item, you would type the value as 0, and you would type priceless in the value text. In this case, since the value is 0, it will not display anything for the value, but instead display the value text only. If you had a value here greater than 0, it will display that value, and it will follow it by whatever text you have there. So you can also use this for sign-up parties, for example. You can type 500 per person, something like that. Now, the value text field is not required, so you can leave it blank if you're not going to use it. And the next thing we have here is the tangible and certificate flags. So if an item is a tangible item, you make sure that you check the tangible flag. If it's a certificate, then you would check the certificate flag. If it's both, then you can leave it both checked. Now this is important to use because it's also information that's going to show up on the invoices, and it may be helpful if you have all your certificates in a box. It will tell the volunteers if the guest has to pick up a certificate or a tangible item. So it's important that you keep track of that information while you're doing the data entries, so that later on it becomes easier to distribute those items. In this case, we're gonna say that this is only a certificate item. The default expiration date is 1 year after the date of the event. If you have a specific date for a particular certificate, you simply uncheck that and you type in the expiration date. In this case, I'm going to leave it as default expiration date. The certificate status is simply a list of options that you have to keep track of where the certificate is at. So if it's a certificate that you have to create, meaning that you're going to use AuctionStart to generate that certificate, you would leave it as must create. We created means that you've already printed, so once you print those from AuctionStart, it'll automatically change the status to we created, meaning that you've already generated those certificates. Received means that the donor gave you the certificate, so we're going to use that one. And donor provides, meaning that the donor is going to provide the certificate. And if it's a party, then you will set that up as an invitation. So we're going to go ahead and say received, meaning that we already have the tickets, and we're going to put them in an envelope and put it in the certificate box. Next, we have the override limits, which you can change. So you can either use the default bid limits, or you can assign an override limit. So if I want to start this at 100 instead of 200, which is my default, I can type 100 there. And if I want the increments to be 20 instead of 25, I can do that as well. So again, this is optional. You can use your default limits, or you can specify where you want that item to start at. There's also a buy now option that you can add, and this is usually a really high amount, probably 400% of the value of the item, and basically will show up on the bid sheet. We'll have a box for someone to place a sticker there, and once they place the sticker there, they win that item, no contest. Okay. The big field in the middle is the description. So 2 tickets. So you type in the description. There's no limit as to how long the description is. Just keep in mind that the longer the description, if you are going to include those descriptions on the bid sheet, the longer it is, the less space there's going to be for bids. So if you are going to have really long descriptions, you have the option to not include those descriptions in the bid sheet, but rather you can print them on a display sheet separately. So you can have the ability to print display sheets and exclude those descriptions from the bid sheets themselves. The field right below the description is the restrictions field. So you can type any type of restrictions, and when it prints on the bid sheet, it will be preceded by the word restrictions.